Hey guys, today I'm going to be showing you how to make a Santa cosmetic bag or crochet hook pouch. I am not a purse person myself, so I use these bags to store my notions like my crochet hooks and my stitch markers, my pencils, things like that. But it's also the perfect size for on the go or for travel size items. I'm using WeCrochet Dishie yarn. That's a 100% worsted weight cotton yarn. It's on the lighter end, so if you're used to using Lily Sugar and Cream, it's a little bit thinner than that. If you would like to use Lily Sugar and Cream instead, gauge is important for this if you're going to use the same bag that I'm using, which is a pre-made canvas bag that comes with a zipper. If you are going to be creating your own lining, gauge is not important. If you're following along and using this bag, you're most likely going to need to go down a crochet hook size to meet gauge, but everyone crochets a little bit differently, so definitely take gauge. And I will go over that in just a little bit. Together with this worsted weight cotton yarn, I'm using an H8 5mm crochet hook. I ordered this one off Etsy from Sienna's Boutique, and it's one of my favorite hooks. I like to use Susan Bates, so that's what the base is, and then I picked the koi fish design. But I have several of her hooks. They're great quality. They're ergonomic, so they're designed for you to be able to hold them and your hands don't hurt. I custom order mine so that they start at a certain point. Colleen responds to messages really quick, and she does a beautiful job. So I will link this in the description box below if you're interested, as well as the WeCrochet Dishie yarn. I love this worsted weight cotton yarn because it is color fast, which means that the colors are set. They're not going to fade or bleed from washing and wear. It also comes in a ton of colors. It's a really nice worsted weight cotton yarn. My pre-made bag is from Hobby Lobby. It measures about 9 inches wide by 6 inches tall, not including the zipper part at the top. But these are my favorite bags to use. I just pop it right into my crocheted bag. It has the zipper there. Most times I do not secure it down if it's just for me. That way I can just pull off the crocheted piece and change it out. But if I am gifting or selling, then I do hand sew it on there using Silamide thread, which is a really strong, waxy sort of thread. I will link some in the description box below if you want to do that. I do know that some other makers also glue their bags on. When working with tough yarns like cotton, jewelry pliers are a really good tool to have to help you weave in your ends. That way it's a little bit easier on your fingers. You're going to find the crochet pattern for this linked in the description box below. Let's go ahead and get started. Let's talk about gauge. Gauge is essential for this project if you're going to be using a pre-made bag that is the same measurements as mine. Then you'll want your gauge to match mine so that it will fit the bag. If you're going to cut your own liner and sew it in with a zipper or another closure, gauge is not essential because you'll custom cut your fabric directly to your bag. But if you want your bag to come out to the same size as mine, then you'll want to take your gauge. You're going to need a soft tape measure. You're going to want to work at least 6 rows up. And you don't have to work the whole sample. You can work a much smaller sample, but work at least 6 rows so that you can get an accurate width measurement. And to measure it, I always measure on the right side. So like around 6 here is on the right side of the fabric. That's where the stitches look most defined. And I'm going to be able to take the most accurate measurement. You're going to want to take your soft tape measure and line it up right where one of the stitches ends. So looking at this stitch here, here's the left leg, here's the right leg. I want to put my soft tape measure up right against where that right leg ends. Then measure over to the same exact point on the next stitch. And continue moving over to the same exact point until you have 15 single crochets. And that's going to equal 4 1/8 inches wide. If you're measuring smaller than this, you're going to want to go up a crochet hook size If you're measuring larger than this, then you're going to want to go down a crochet hook size. The width measurement here is the most important because we need it to fit our bag. The height measurement can be adjusted because you can work more rounds or less rounds. Height wise, if you measure from the top of row 6 down to the bottom, you're going to get 1.5 inches in the beginning. Here from the top of row 10 down to the bottom, I have 2.5 inches. I'm going to start with a slip knot, so I've pulled the working yarn here over my fingers. Wrap it around my index finger 2 times, holding tension with my thumb and my middle finger. Then I'll pull the loop that's on the left up over the other one, but not off my finger. Then I'll pull the loop on the left up over the other one and off my finger. Take my crochet hook, insert it into the loop on my finger and pull it off. I'll hold the working yarn in my right hand, and in my left hand I'm going to pull the tail end so this knot goes to normal tension. I'm going to start with a chain 34. To chain, we yarn over our hook and pull through the loop. Yarn over and pull through the loop. Yarn over and pull through the loop. This gives us these V-shaped stitches here. Each one of those is a chain, so we have 3. I'm going to go ahead and continue working until I have all my chains done. Now I have my chain finished. I'm going to work into each one of those stitches to complete my first round. Starting in the second stitch from the hook, we don't count the loop that's on our hook, skipping the first stitch, and in the second stitch that's where we're going to work. And here we're going to do half double crochets. So into that second stitch there, I'm going to work 2 half double crochets. Yarn over, insert your hook into that stitch, yarn over, pull through, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. Yarn over, insert your hook back into the same stitch, yarn over and pull through, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. We're going to have 2 ends that are rounded. This is going to be the first one, and that's why we're working multiple stitches into the same stitch. I'm going to continue working a half double crochet into each chain all the way until I get to the very last one. Let's work one more half double crochet together. Yarn over, insert your hook into the center of the chain, yarn over and pull through, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. And now I'll continue working down the chain. I've reached the last chain. This is where our other end is going to be, and I need to increase here. This way, as we work, this part is going to stay flat. We're going to work 3 half double crochets into this very last stitch. As you work, this strand is going to pull out because this knot is not secured. So just make sure that it doesn't pull all the way out, and after you finish working your 3 stitches, then you can hold on to the slip knot, pull the tail end, and it'll close it back up. Now I'm going to rotate here so I can work on the opposite side of the foundation chain. I'm actually going to hold on to my tail end up against my chain so I can crochet about 3 or 4 stitches over it and have that count as the first pass, and then I'll just weave in 2 times later on. So I'm holding it right underneath the chains. This next side is worked exactly the same as how you just worked the first side. You're going to be working into the center of the chains there. So in each chain there will be a stitch on the left and on the right. So I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook into the very next stitch, right into the center of the chain. And as I do that, I have the chain on my hook and the tail end on my hook. Then I'll complete my half double crochet. And now I've just worked over my tail end. I'm going to do that for a couple more stitches here, just holding it to the back of the chains and half double crocheting directly into the center of the chain. And now I'm going to just drop my tail end. I'm not going to crochet over it anymore. I'm going to weave the rest of it in with my tapestry needle. I'm going to continue half double crocheting into each one of these chains all the way until I get back to the beginning. You want to have the same number of half double crochets here in the middle, not including where you've worked the 3 half double crochets on both sides, on the top and on the bottom. And when you work the first pass, it's really easy to work into each stitch. It can be a little confusing when you're working the second pass where you stop working at here at the end, so I definitely recommend counting your stitches here on this side. Not including the 2 ends, you're going to have 31 half double crochets. Now I've worked all the way across. I have just one more half double crochet to work into the very first stitch where I started with the 2 half double crochets, and that's going to complete this side with 3 half double crochets. So I'll yarn over, insert my hook into the very first stitch that I worked those first 2 half double crochets into and complete my half double crochet. And now I'm going to slip stitch join, inserting my hook under both loops of the very first half double crochet, yarn over and pull through that stitch and the loop on my hook. That completes our round, and we're going to be slip stitching at the end of each round. I'm going to pull up a loop here so we can lay this out and see that the bottom of our bag is now finished, and the rest of the bag is going to be built on top of this. I'm going to flip it over. This is the wrong side here where my tail end is. Right in the center of that chain there, that's where your bag is going to start folding, and then it will start taking a sort of bowl shape that is going to be our bag. All the remaining rounds are going to be worked in single crochet. I am going to be switching colors as I work through my image. We are no longer increasing on the ends. This is as wide as we want it to be. We are just going to work 1 stitch around so that we can grow the height. So here I've chained 1, and now I'm going to turn. I'm going to single crochet into that very first stitch there, insert my hook, picking up both loops of the V shape, then yarn over and pull through. I have 2 loops on my hook. Yarn over and pull through both loops. Insert my hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull through. I have 2 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through both loops. Insert my hook into the next stitch, yarn over and pull through. 2 loops on my hook, yarn over and pull through both loops. And I'm going to continue single crocheting into each stitch all the way around. When I finish this round, I'm going to have the same number of stitches as I did in round 1. When you get to the end, it can be a little confusing as to where your last stitch should be placed. So it's a good idea to count your stitches if you're unsure. I would start from here in the beginning and work all the way around. Each one of these V shapes at the top is a stitch. So here, the last one I just worked, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 single crochets worked so far. Alright, there's my last stitch. And you see this gap here in the middle? That's where I said sometimes it can be a little confusing because you think you need to work in there, but I have the correct number of stitches right now. I'm going to insert my hook into that very first stitch under both loops and complete a slip stitch by yarning over, pulling through that stitch and the loop that's on my hook. I'm going to slip stitch join at the end of each round. And now round 2 is finished. And here in the corners where we worked our just regular single crochet in each stitch is going to start to cave in on itself and create a sort of bowl shape. That's exactly what we want. We want it to now get taller. For each round we're going to work it exactly the same as this round that we just finished. Chain 1 and turn. Single crochet into the very first stitch and each stitch all the way around. After I work a couple rounds here, I'm going to just check it on my bag to make sure that it's the correct size that I'm looking for. So here I've just folded it into the correct shape. Then I'll grab my bag that I'm lining it with and place it in there. It does stretch, so if you need to stretch it a little bit to fit, it will do that. You'll get a better feel for it after a couple rounds. If you're happy with the size of your bag, or if you're going to line it afterwards instead of putting in a pre-made bag, then I recommend weaving in your end that you started with before getting too far, just because it's a lot easier to get to it now. So I'm going to go ahead and work a couple more rounds. 6 rounds are what we want before we're going to change colors. I might check after 4 and then I'll weave in the beginning tail end and then continue on. To count your rounds, the first round that we worked, where we worked all the way on the top and on the bottom of the foundation chain, that's round 1. And you'll see that the stitches split right there in the middle. This one goes down, this one goes up. So right there from the middle you have 2 rounds. And if you fold it in half, you can see the same thing. Fold it in half, there's 2 rounds. Each time you chain 1 and turn, you're working the stitches in a different direction. So if you look here on the inside, I am looking at the wrong side of this, or the back side. And the round that we just finished, the stitches look prettier, more defined. That's going to be the right side, and you're going to notice as you work you're going to have a very defined wrong side and right side, and that's going to make counting it really easy. I have 5 rows almost complete, and I'm going to go ahead and test it. I'm just putting my bag right in it the way that it would normally sit. I'm happy with the way that that is fitting widthwise, so I'm going to go ahead and weave in that initial tail end. When I worked over it, I'm going to count that as my first pass. I do normally like to work vertically so that it doesn't bunch up or prohibit the stretch widthwise, which is the stretch that we want for this bag. So I'm just going to work carefully here, making sure to use my fingers to manipulate the fabric so it lays naturally. I'm going to insert into a nearby stitch, and when I do that, I'm not going to pick up the whole stitch on my needle. I'm going to break the stitch in half. Then I'll run it back through several of those stitches and break my last stitch in half as I exit, and that's just going to help to capture my yarn better. Then I'll pull through, use my fingers to manipulate the fabric, and I like to work 3 passes, so I'll do one more, breaking my stitch in half as I enter and as I exit. Give it a tug, use my fingers to manipulate the fabric. I'm happy with that weave, so I'll go ahead and fasten it off. And when I weave in my other ends, I'll do the same process, 3 passes, breaking my stitch as I enter and exit, but I'll work vertically instead of horizontally there. I'm going to continue crocheting until I have 6 rounds complete in this red color. This is the last stitch for round 6. I'm going to slip stitch join to the first stitch, and now I have 6 rounds complete. I'm going to chain 1 and turn, and now I'm going to introduce yellow here to start the buckle. So I'm going to single crochet into this very first stitch, and then I'm going to work 9 more single crochets. There's 10 single crochets in the red from the beginning. I'm going to start the next one, insert my hook into that stitch, yarn over and pull through. There are 2 loops on my hook, and I'm going to pause. The next step is yarn over and pull through. So here's where we're going to introduce our yellow. I'm going to form a loop, leaving a tail end long enough I can comfortably weave in, and I'm going to put this loop onto my hook. This is going to count as the last yarn over. So I'm going to pull tight on the red stitches, then hold the tension of the loops with my right hand, put that loop on my hook, and then pull it through. That's going to complete my single crochet, so I have the very last single crochet there worked in the red. But now I'm in the position to work with my new color. I'm going to drop the tail end of the yellow and drop the red to the back. That's going to be the inside of the bag. And now I'm going to work 13 single crochets in this yellow color. And if that first loop opens up on you, just go to the back, pull on the tail ends, and it'll close that up. There's my 13th single crochet. I'm going to start one more, insert my hook, yarn over and pull through, 2 loops on my hook, and I'm going to pause. This is where we're going to bring red back in, and I'm going to introduce a new tail from my red ball. So I have just one ball here. I'm using the center pull where I started. I'm going to find the other tail end that's wrapped around, and I'm going to use that one. If you have another ball of the red, you could do that. I'm going to form a loop, leaving a tail end long enough to weave in. Place this loop onto my crochet hook, pull it through. That completes my yellow single crochet. Then I'll drop the tail ends to the back and I'm ready to go with the red. So now I'm going to complete this round working 43 single crochets in the red color. That's my last stitch for this round. I'm going to slip stitch join to the very first single crochet. And now round 7 is complete. For round 8, I'm going to chain 1 and turn. Normally I would work into the same single crochet of where I slip stitch 2 for my first stitch, but I'm actually going to skip that stitch and I'm going to work my first stitch into the next stitch there. And then I'll continue single crocheting across until I have 43 single crochets complete. This is my 43rd stitch here. I'm working half of it only because I'm about to switch back to my yellow. So you'll work 42 complete stitches and then half of 43. And I'm going to hold the tension of my loops with my right hand, drop the red tail end to the front this time. That's the same side as where the other tail ends are. Then I will grab this yellow. You can tighten it up if it's come loose. I have it now ready to work with. Yarn over with the yellow and pull it through. That completes my last single crochet there with the red. I can tighten the red strand if I need to. And now I'm ready to go with the yellow. I'll work 13 single crochets in the yellow. Then I'm going to work the first half of this next single crochet, then hold the tension of the loops with my right hand, drop the yellow to the front, pick up the red, tighten it if I need to, then yarn over with the red and pull it through. And you'll want to yarn over and pull through as natural as possible. You don't want this to be bunched up or have any slack. And then I'll continue working 11 more red single crochets. Then I'll slip stitch join to the very first single crochet there And now round 8 is complete. The next 2 rounds are going to be worked just like rounds 7 and 8. We're going to have 4 rounds worked with the yellow, and then we're going to introduce the black after that. I'm going to start with a chain 1 and turn. I'm going to skip the very first stitch, work a single crochet into the next stitch, and then I'm going to continue working so that I have 10 red single crochets. Now I'm going to work the first half of this next single crochet, hold the loops, drop the red, pick up the yellow, yarn over with the yellow and pull it through. Then I'll continue working 13 yellow single crochets. Work the first half of the next stitch, hold the loops, drop the yellow, pick up the red, yarn over and pull it through, and then I'll continue working with the red so that I have 43 single crochets worked in it, and I'm back to the beginning. There's the end of my round. I'll slip stitch join to the first stitch. And now round 9 is complete. For round 10, I'm going to chain 1 and turn. Skip that first stitch. In the next stitch, single crochet, and continue single crocheting so that I have 42 stitches worked in the red. I'm going to work the first half of the next stitch, then I'll drop the red to the front so that it's on the same side as the tails. Grab the yellow, tighten it if I need to, yarn over and pull it through. Then I'll work so that I have 13 yellow single crochets. Work the first half of the next stitch, drop the yellow to the front, pick up the red, yarn over and pull it through, and then I'll continue working so that I have 11 red single crochets worked here. Then I'll slip stitch join to the first stitch, and round 10 is complete. And this is going to be the first part of the buckle. Now I'm going to introduce black in the next round, and the black will be for the belt that runs through the buckle. So I'm going to go ahead and switch to black and then fasten off my red, and I'll just work all the way around in the black color for a few rounds, and then when I'm ready to bring the red back in, I'll go ahead and switch back to it. So I slip stitched as normal for round 10. I'm going to grab my black, make a loop, tail end long enough to weave in, put this loop on my crochet hook and pull it through, and then pull down the red, and the red loop will disappear. This is how I like to change colors for the most seamless color change. If you prefer to change your colors a different way, go ahead and do whatever way you're most comfortable with. So I have the black loop on my hook, chain 1, I'm going to go ahead and fasten off the red. And then I'll turn. And I'm going to work 10 single crochets in the black color. You may need to tighten up the tail ends. If the red loop pops back up, tighten it down, it'll disappear, and it'll stay like that once this end is secured. So there's 1 single crochet in black. I'm going to go ahead and continue until I have 10. Then I'll work the first half of the next one, drop my black to the back, pick up the yellow, yarn over with the yellow and pull it through. Then I'm going to work 3 single crochets in the yellow color, and I'll work the first half of this next single crochet, and then I'm going to put this down. For this round, it's going to be black in the beginning, a couple stitches of yellow, then black in the center, a couple stitches of yellow, and then black for the remainder. So I need to introduce black here in the middle, and I need to have black at the end. So I'm going to tie on a black here, and I'm going to pull a really long strand and then fasten off. I'm not going to roll it into a bobbin, but you absolutely could do that so that it's easier to handle. And the reason why I'm going to fasten it off is because I'm going to use that same tail end and reattach it down here. That way I can work from the ball on both ends. So let me go to my ball of black. If you have another ball of black, then instead of doing what I'm about to do, you can just attach another ball there and work directly from the skein. But here's the tail end of the black, and I'm going to just go ahead and pull off quite a bit. And I'll work with this until I run out, and then I'll add some more. So here on my black, I'll make a loop, tail end long enough to weave in, and put that loop on my hook. Then here in the center, I'm going to go ahead and work 5 black single crochets. Then I'll work the first half of the next one. I'll put this down. I'm going to go to my yellow ball of yarn. I'm going to find the other end, and I'm going to attach the yarn here. If you have a second ball of yellow, go ahead and use that. But I have just one, so I just work from both ends. Drop the tail ends to the back. I have yellow ready to go, and I'll work 3 single crochets in yellow. Then I'll work the first half of this next single crochet. I can go ahead and fasten off this red strand right here, and I'll reattach it later on. And now I need to go back to my black ball of yarn. I fastened off here for the part that I pulled in the middle, so I'm going to use that now, which is the second tail from my ball, and attach that here. Drop the tail ends to the back, and then I'll finish out this round with 43 single crochets worked in the black color. There's my last stitch of the round. I'm going to pull this red tail that I cut to the back and then slip stitch join to the first stitch. And now this round is complete. Let me flip this back around. For round 12, I'm going to chain 1 and turn. Then I'm going to work 42 black single crochets. Then I'll work the first half of this next stitch, drop the black to the front, pick up the yellow, tighten it down if you need to, pull it through, work 3 single crochets in the yellow, the first half of the next one, drop the yellow to the front, pick up the black, then work 5 single crochets in the black, work the first half of the next one, drop the black to the front, pick up the yellow, work 3 single crochets in the yellow, work the first half of the next one, drop the yellow to the front, pick up the black, and then we're going to finish this round out with 11 black single crochets. Now I'll slip stitch join to the first stitch of the round, and round 12 is complete. I'm going to chain 1 and turn and put all this stuff back in here. Rounds 13 through 16 are going to be worked the same as 11 and 12. So round 11 we worked 11 black single crochets, 4 single crochets in the yellow, 6 single crochets in the black, 4 single crochets in the yellow, and then 43 single crochets in the black. Then we chained 1 and turned, worked back the 43 single crochets in black, then 4 yellow, 6 black, 4 yellow, and finished it with 11 black. The next 4 rounds are going to be worked in the same exact manner, building up the center part here, and then we'll fasten off our black after that and go back to the red and yellow. So I'm going to work the next 4 rounds off camera, and then I'll be back at the end of round 16. But I'll put up a chart before I go with the instructions for each of these rounds. I've reached the end of round 16. I'm going to slip stitch join, pull up on that loop, and I'm going to put the buckle part in front of me. I have the wrong side facing out right now, which is the inside of the bag. And I'm going to go ahead and fasten off some of the yarn that I no longer need. I will fasten off where I just pulled up this loop in a few moments. But working back across, it's going to be red up to the buckle. Then I'll use this yellow strand to go straight across. So here in the middle where I have the black, I'm going to go ahead and fasten that off. Here the second yellow, I can fasten that off. And then the second black, I can fasten that off as well. And that'll help a lot because I'll be able to pull all those strands out and do some untangling. And now what I'm left with is the black where my loop is still attached and the first yellow. I'm going to go ahead and weave in these ends before I continue. And I'm going to do it the same way that I did the initial one that I showed you, 3 passes, breaking my stitches in half as I enter and exit. So I'm only going to show you one here. I'm going to work vertically into my stitches as opposed to horizontally. Horizontally has more of a chance of bunching up the stitches and prohibiting the stretch. So I'm going to work vertically into my stitches, breaking this stitch in half here instead of picking up the whole thing, breaking it in half. Running down through several stitches, breaking that last stitch in half as I exit, and that's just to help capture my yarn. Give it a tug, use my fingers to manipulate the fabric if I need to, insert into a nearby stitch, breaking it in half, run up through several stitches I just finished, and break my last stitch in half as I exit. One more pass for me. I'm going to actually insert this one into the black above it because that's the most nearby stitch. And as long as you do it through just the top layer, it won't be seen from the right side. So if you're concerned about seeing it, you'll flip over to the right side, and if you can see your needle through right now, then you're going to be able to see your strand. But if you can't see it, like we can't see it, it's going to be hidden. And as you work, if you're having a tough time pulling your yarn tail ends through, jewelry pliers are a really great tool to have as you're working with tough yarns like cotton. The flat part here in the middle, I just grab my needle with that and use it to pull through. One important thing is to make sure that the eye of the needle is flat facing you so you can see directly down it. That way it pulls smooth through the fabric. And then once I get it past, I put the jewelry pliers down and I pull the rest of the way. If it's really tough, make sure you're cautious as you pull through because it can break the eye of your needle. Then we'll fasten this part off here. And I'm going to go ahead and continue weaving in the rest of my ends before I move on. I'll do it off camera, but I'll weave them in vertically, the yellow there, the black into the black, this black upwards into the black, red down, and repeat on the other side. Once I have these woven in, then I'll be back so we can start the next round together. I have all my ends woven in. Now I have just the yellow and the black strand. I'm going to turn to the right side. Then I'll go back to this black tail end. And I'm going to grab my red I've just tightened the loop down to normal tension. I'm going to put the loop on my hook, pull it through, then pull down on the black so that it disappears. And this is the same way I showed you before. This is the way that I prefer so that it's a seamless transition. But if you prefer a different way, then go ahead and do that. We just want to switch from the black to the red. Then I'll chain one. And I'm ready to go with the red. I'm going to go ahead and fasten off the black here. I'm no longer going to be using that. And now we're going to work 11 single crochets in the red color. And I've worked just the first half of this 11th stitch so that I can drop the red to the back, pick up the yellow, and we're done working the inside part of the buckle. We're just going to work 13 yellow single crochets across here. And I'll work the first half of the next stitch, and I'll put this down. I need to reattach red here, so I'm going to go back to the strand that's on the other side of my ball of yarn. Put that loop on my hook and pull it through. And I'll finish this out with 43 red single crochets. That's my last single crochet. I'm going to tighten the black and pull it into the inside of the bag where all the rest of the tail ends are on the wrong side. Then slip stitch join to the first stitch. And now round 17 is complete. For round 18, I'm going to chain one and turn. Then I'm going to work 42 single crochets in red. Then I'll work the first half of this next single crochet, drop the red to the front here, pick up the yellow, then I'm going to work 13 single crochets in yellow, then I'll work the first half of this next stitch, drop the yellow to the front, and pick up the red. And I'll finish this off with 11 single crochets in red. Then I'll slip stitch join to the very first stitch, and round 18 is finished. Rounds 19 and 20 are going to be a repeat of those two we just finished working. So for 19, you'll chain 1 and turn, 11 red single crochets, 14 yellow single crochets, 43 red single crochets and join. Then 20, chain 1 and turn, 43 red single crochets, 14 yellow single crochets, and 11 red single crochets. I'm going to work these off camera. Before I go, I'll put up a chart with this information. When we come back, we will fasten off the yellow and then finish off with a couple rounds of red. Here's the end of round 20. I'm going to slip stitch join and pull up a loop here, turning my bag to the wrong side. Now we are finished working our buckle in the middle, so I'm going to fasten off the yellow. And because we won't be splitting our yarn here in the middle, we can use one continuous strand for the whole thing. So I'm going to fasten off the first red tail that I had. Then I'll go ahead and turn my bag back to the right side facing. Insert my hook back into that loop, pull it back down, and now we're just going to finish this off with rounds of single crochet. So I'm going to chain 1 and turn, and I'm going to single crochet into the very first single crochet. Here I'm working into the first one instead of the second one. And I'm going to continue single crocheting all the way around. This is going to be for rounds 21 through 26. 6 rounds of working just in red all the way around. There's 68 single crochets, slip stitch join to the very first single crochet of the round. And now I'm going to continue working off camera. There'll be 6 rounds worked in just the red, so we've just completed 5 more rounds to go. 26 rounds in total for the bag. I completed 26 rounds and measured the height, and it was a little bit shorter than I wanted, so I went ahead and added an additional round. So there's 27 rounds in total, 7 rounds in red here. If you're using the same pre-made bag as me, then this is a great time to take your bag, place it inside, and make sure that it is the height that you're looking for. And it's okay if the crocheted bag is a little bit shorter, because you can stretch to fit it and then sew it in place. I know some people hot glue it in place. I often will not secure mine to the liner. That way I can just easily pull the crocheted piece off and change it out depending on the bag that I want to use. But when I do gift them or sell them, I do sew them onto the lining, and I use Silamine thread, which I'll link in the description box below. I think I may alter the written pattern to have an additional round of single crochet down here in the red section before beginning the belt. It will stretch to fit, so I'm not worried about that, but it'll add just a little bit extra height because the cotton yarn isn't quite as filling. And with this red yarn and the lighter lining, I prefer it to be a little bit taller so it doesn't stretch out quite as much and be as holey. If you're using an acrylic yarn or a wool yarn, it will fill in all these gaps a lot better. But I'm not going to redo my bag, and I want to keep it as symmetrical as possible, so I'm not going to add any more rounds to it. I'm just going to go ahead and use it just like this. I am going to go ahead and sew it in place though. So to finish this off, I'm going to fasten off my yarn. Pull up on this loop to break it. To get it to the wrong side, I like to take my hook, insert it into the stitch that I slip stitch joined to, yarn over and pull it through. And then I'll turn my bag to the wrong side and weave in all these final ends that I have. I'll go ahead and do that off camera. If you wanted to add a little bit extra to your bag, you could crochet a flap that goes over. You could add straps to the sides. Another cool thing for clutches is to have a strap on the back that basically goes where that belt is. So you would attach it at the sides here, that way you could stick your hand into it. Lots of options for your bag. Guys, thanks so much for watching my video. You'll find the crochet pattern for this linked in the description box below. Please smash that like button and hit subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.